Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to our Conversations in Design session. I'm Claire German, Managing Director at the Design Centre Chelsea Harbour. In this exciting format, we're keeping our community engaged and inspired wherever they are. We're bringing together designers, industry insiders and media hosts for some great conversations online. And by the power of technology, I'm beyond thrilled and excited to introduce the legendary fashion designer and philanthropist Diane von Furstenberg, who is joining us from New York. This promised to be such an inspiring and empowering session, and who better to chair it than Ben Spriggs, editor of ELLE Decoration. So without further ado, over to you, Ben, and thank you all for tuning in. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Ben Spriggs, Editor-in-Chief of ELLE Decoration. Today I'm thrilled and honoured to be joined by internationally renowned fashion designer and philanthropist Diane von Furstenberg. Hello Diane, lovely to meet you.
Hello Ben, so nice to be here.
I have to say I've been devouring your new book, which I have here, which is Own It, The Secret of Life.
No, The Secret to Life.
To Life, sorry. The Secret
Very different.
Absolutely, very true, sorry. But it's an empowering manifesto. It's, a personal and, it's a blueprint for personal and professional growth at whatever, at any age. It's packed with bite-sized pieces of wisdom and inspiration, and it reveals why home should be a true expression of who we really are, which I love. So I just wanted to start off asking, how did the book come about?
Well, I have had a very full life and a life full of experience, and so I love to give advice. I used to resent it when my mother gave advice to everybody, but I've become just worse. And so the publisher came to me and they said, we would love to have, a book, kind of a self-help book, and because people quote you all the time and so on. And I had just launched this In Charge movement. So it starts from the fact that people always ask me, what did you want to do when you were growing up? And I said, well, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew the kind of woman I wanted to be. I wanted to be a woman in charge, a woman who could pay her bills and etc., who could have a man's life. And then people would say, who is your customer? Who do you design for? And there too, I would say the woman in charge. So in charge was always, became more and more an umbrella for everything I did. And when we do International Women's Day, when we have panels, everything, we use very much the in charge thing. So originally the book was going to be called In Charge. Right. But then I realized that you have to, if you just say in charge like that, it can seem aggressive. So, but it's not, because to be in charge is first and foremost a commitment to ourselves, owning who we are. We own our imperfection, they become our asset. We own our vulnerability, it turns into strength. So Own It kept on coming back more and more and more. And then I started, it was going to be prose. And the first sentence of the book was going to be, we cannot choose our parents, right? And so it's a little provocative, but if you say that to anyone and say, oh, yeah, that's right. That's the first thing that we are given and that we cannot do anything. So it's really the first thing we have to own, whether we like it or not like it, we have to own it and do the best we can. So Own It kept on coming back, so it was called Own It. So I started writing in prose, but it felt so condescending, and I don't like to be condescending. I like to. So then I made a list, because words are so important to me, because I pay so much attention to words. I took a big diary, and every page was the letter of the alphabet, and I started to write all the words that are meaningful to me, that are important to me, and that speak to me, and also some words that don't speak to me, that I want to reject, like shame and blame and anger and all that. And then I decided to do it almost like a little dictionary.
Yeah.
and I picked the words letter by letter, even though it is a dictionary and it is every word is per letter. Within it, it's not alphabetically. It's more how they tell a story one after the other. And I started to do that. So sometimes it's just a very small definition. Sometimes it's an anecdote, but all of it bring you back to own it and to be true to yourself and all of that.
I like this idea that you talked about being able to dip into it. You can keep it by the side of your bed, or it's something you can dip into.
It's like cards, you say, okay, you talk about and you have one word for the day. Which word did you like?
Well, I personally obviously will always like home, because home is the world I revolve in, and that's
Okay, so let's see what I wrote for home. Home is the shelter we create for ourselves and our loved ones, and it reflects who we are. Our true home is the relationship we have with ourselves. Once we have that, it creates a refuge inside us that is the core of our strength.
Yeah, really.
And whether it's the home inside us or the home that we create to surround ourselves, it has to be true to who we are.
Yeah.
The food in the refrigerator, the books in the bookshelves, everything reflects thing of who you are.
Yeah.
I've had my house since I was 26 years old. Every single thing is a moment of my life, even though you change. You have small children, big children, small grandchildren, big children, one man, another man. These all change, but then it all becomes, and it's very, very important to have that.
Yeah, no, honesty. So going back to your origins of when you set up your label, which was in the 70s, the wrap dress is obviously the iconic piece, that kind of the building blocks of your empire. How did that design come about? How did that kind of...
I didn't even know that I would become a designer. At first, my first thing with fashion was working for a photographer's agent in Paris. And so my first contact with fashion was the image of fashion, the magazines, the photographers, the makeup artists, the advertising agency. And then I met a man, an Italian man, who had a print factory in Como. Como is the center of silk. That's where the Silk Road ends. And he was printing silk for a lot of companies and printing scarves for Gucci, Ferragamo. And so I went there, and I didn't think this what I was watching there, I was just an intern. What I was watching there, I never thought would be helpful in my life. But it was very interesting. I saw how they buy the illustration, or how they buy art, how they put it in repeats. You work with the people who make the color palette, blah, blah, blah. So that was really very interesting. And then he also bought another factory next door where they used to make hosiery, stockings. And of course, stockings were no longer in fashion. So he said, but what can I use these machines for? And he used thicker yarn, and that was the birth of jersey. So jersey and print. Then I went to visit my boyfriend, Egon, who was in America, and he was living here. And there I was just there for 2 months. I met all the young designers, Holston, Stephen Burrows, and Giorgio Sant'Angelo. And I saw a whole different fashion that I saw in Europe. So when I left New York, all I could think about, how do I get back to New York? And when I got to the factory, all of a sudden I thought, ooh, I know what I can do. Let me make samples that I will try to sell in America. And that's how it happened.
Came about. And why do you think it's such an enduring piece that has stood the test of time?
And as far as the wrap dress, it was first a wrap top. It was a jersey wrap top, just like what dancers wear. And it was with a matching skirt. And it did very well. And then I went back to, the draping board in the factory, and we made it into a dress. And little did I know that that was going to be the secret to my success.
Fantastic. And which of your inspirations, what in terms of your style, which of your inspirations have stayed the same over the years? Which have changed?
Well, within fashion, and actually more than just in fashion, for me, it's the woman first. It's all about the woman, right? My role is to make the woman look the best, to make the woman look confident, use fabric that feels soft. It's all about the woman. So what was the question?
No, just kind of how the inspirations that you have
Yes, so my inspiration is always a woman. And my origin is always the same. It's a woman around 28 years old. Because that's at 28, I was lucky, but at 28, I became the woman I wanted to be, which was an independent woman, and a woman in charge. I had 2 children, I had a business, I was on my own, and I was completely in charge. And that woman remains the inspiration. Because even if you get older, I'm very much older than that 28-year-old woman is still in me. I mean, obviously you cannot wear everything, but it's still that kind of energetic woman in charge.
Great. It's the energy and the power at the heart. That's great. And going back to your home, you have homes in New York, you have your place in Connecticut. I wanted, at ELLE Decoration, we're obsessed with your forays into the interior world as well as your fashion projects. Tell me about your home. How is that a true expression of who you really are?
Well, I mean, if you have a home, a home obviously reflects who you are, even if all you have is a mattress on the floor, a light and a television and a few books, And so how could I describe the interiors that I create? It's always incredibly comfortable. It is not formal. The sofas are comfortable, very comfortable. I need a big table. Always. I remember when I visited Tolstoy's house in Moscow, and every room had a bed, a comfortable chair, and a desk. And I think that those are the most important things. And then obviously you choose the style you have and the resources you have. But what is most important is the bed, the table, the desk, and a comfortable chair.
Yeah, and obviously art is a big influence in your life as well. We're looking at some pictures now of your home in Connecticut, Cloud Walk. Tell us a little bit about how you put that together and the pieces you put into there.
Well, this is my studio. It's in a barn, and it's a huge room, which was absolutely heaven because I've been living in that room now for a year. And it's about having a huge table. That one happens to be really beautiful. It's Nagashima. And the table is exactly my age. It was made the same year I was born. Lots of books, lots of comfortable chairs, daylight. And then we have that painting that you're seeing there is a portrait that was made by a Chinese artist, contemporary Chinese artist called Li Song. And it's very interesting because he paints with his finger or with like a flat stick. And if you go to his studio, it looks like ice creams, all the colors, and it goes. And apparently this painting will take 200 years to dry.
Wow, it's incredible. And in terms of the pieces you've got there, in terms of objet and stuff, how do you source those? Are they, collections from when you've traveled, when you've been around,
Oh, it's your life. As I said, in the back, you see there's a big, huge sofa because it's also a screening room. I have a big screen coming down from the Warhols. You see the Warhols at the top.
Yeah.
And the big table, great chairs. I use those great little cardboard Frank Gehry stools because you can use them as tables if you eat on trays. That's it.
Yeah,
Books,
fantastic.
books.
And obviously you have the Warhol portraits in there. Now, this is a more recent picture. You have the Warhol portraits in there as well.
The Warhols, those Warhols were made in the 1982 or 3.
Fantastic. And how do you find the process of putting together an interior different to a fashion collection? Are there differences? Are there similarities?
Well, an interior is about actually the similarities, it's about functional, right? Because that's the difference. The design is about function. Okay, so this, what you see now on screen is my office. The floor where I have my office. The one that I'm in is my office. There again, you see a big, huge table. It's Jean-Michel Franck. And then the library where we have meetings and things, it's another huge table from Frank Gehry from the 70s.
Again, the corrugated cardboard.
All the rugs are from the rug company. They're designed by us.
Yeah, and I love that you have books everywhere and the collections of things around.
Books everywhere, a lot of chairs. Those colorful chairs are Austrian Franz West, and the other ones, the wood one, are Hans Wegner. They are Scandinavian.
Beautiful. And how do you? I know you've obviously designed some suites at Claridge's Hotel here in London in the past. How do you find it when you're designing interiors for other people, so it's not to be used by yourself?
Well, comfortable. I try to put color. For hotels, you have to be careful with colors because, you know, you may get a man by himself who may not be comfortable in certain colors. But comfort and spaciousness, you know, the feeling of spaciousness, even when you have a small room.
No, absolutely. And then I wanted to move on to talk about this idea of personal growth. How has your approach to personal growth changed as you've got older?
Well, I'm not about growing anymore. But it's very interesting, actually, that you say that, because it's not true. I realize, you know, obviously now with the pandemic, we all spend more time alone. Which I love, because I think being alone is so, I just love it. And because you have time to reflect, and you have time to read, and you have time to think, and you can. I was lucky because I have a garden, so I could walk. But you do keep on growing, and especially now that we are accelerating into the virtual world. There's so much happening. And my regret is that I mean, the world is going to be so incredibly different in 20 years. And I don't know whether I'll see it or not, but it's a fascinating moment in history. I mean, it could be scary, and it can be, but again, you have to own it. You know, and you have to take what is going on and own it. I think that on one side, we're all closer to nature, and then on the other side, we accelerate towards the virtual world by.
And we're constantly learning as we go, I think.
And it's so incredible, especially today. I mean, wherever you are, I mean, with your phone, you can watch anything, you could study anything, you could read anything. I mean, you know, imagine we had to go to the library and ask and borrow and this and that. Now, on a minute, you have all the information you want. So
at your fingertips, absolutely. You recently said in an interview you did with us at ELLE Decoration, you said travel has been the essence of my life. I just wanted to talk about some of your memorable trips, why they meant so much to you. You very kindly shared some of your holiday photos with us as well, travel photos.
All right, so the middle one is it was taken, I think, for a shoot. Is, you know, Air France, Concorde, Woman on the Go. It reflects that that woman that I designed for, you
Yeah.
know, the woman on the go.
Fantastic colour.
I clearly have been a woman on the go all my life until now.
Yeah.
And I traveled a lot. So on the upper left, it's me. I think it's the Valley of the Queen. It's in Egypt, and I love Egypt. I love the history. I love all of that, but that's a long time ago. Right below that is equally old. It's in Easter Island, Hanupani, which is Easter Island, and that's as far as you can go anywhere.
Exactly.
And that was also incredibly interesting. You know, where did these statues come from? And that was last year. That was my last big trip before the pandemic.
And you went on your own as well, I think.
I
Right?
went on my own. Yeah, I was going to Chile. I was going to Chile to go to a Shama retreat. And when I looked in the map, I saw it's still 5 hours plane from Chile. But otherwise, if I didn't go then, I would never go. So I decided to go. And I stayed 3-4 days, but it was fascinating. It was just incredible.
Incredible place.
And the one on the right, where I also have my arm up, that's hiking the Machu Picchu. That's pretty amazing too. Pretty amazing. And the one above that is in the Bahamas, near my mother's house.
So how have you found not being able, I mean, obviously since Easter Island, how have you found during the pandemic not being able to travel, not to be on the go, like you say, as you always have been? How is...
Well, actually, I mean, again, you have to own it, right? And I truly, truly enjoyed it. Now, one of the reasons that I enjoyed it is that I feel like I've traveled so much. I've seen so many places that even if I went never to move again, it's totally fine. And also you can move with books, you can move with all kinds of things. So I actually really enjoyed it. But again, I was in the garden. Nature makes a big difference. If
Definitely.
you're stuck in a small apartment, it's much harder.
Yeah, and you can expand your horizons in lots of different ways. So yeah. I also wanted to talk about, obviously, the dress. The wrap dress is a symbol of female power now and independence. I wanted you to tell us a little bit about the DVF Awards that you...
Okay, so I have always been a feminist, with as many M as you possibly can find. I came to New York at a time that, it was Gloria Steinem and women's liberation. So I've always been a feminist. I've been always involved in women's association. And about 11 years ago, I started the DVF Awards, which is a yearly event that we do to highlight and support women who have had the strength to fight, the courage to survive, and the leadership to inspire. And most of those women are not well known, but in order for them to get well known, I usually give the big award, the Lifetime Award, to someone major. In this case, in this photograph, was Anita Hill, who received the award from Gloria Steinem. There was also Kate Perry in that picture because she got the Inspirational Award. So I give award to other women who are not so well known, but who should be well known. And in order to amplify that, it's good to have women also who are very well known. I mean, in this photo, I also have a Nobel Prize, Nadia Murad. So it's quite a big picture.
Absolutely. And in this, I love this other photo as well to the right, which is, I love the idea of feel like a woman, wear a dress. I like the idea that you can be feminine, and still a feminist.
Okay, so this was my first dress. I think it was my first dress, my first print. And I think that's 50 years ago. That's a long time. half a century ago.
Wow, it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
21, maybe 72.
Yeah.
Maybe it was maybe 72, but that's almost.
Yeah. And how do you continue to fight inequality these days?
Oh my God, that's what, you know, when I created this movement about being in charge, it's about connecting, expanding, inspire, and advocate. And advocacy is to fight abuse, inequality, and what's the third one? Abuse, inequality. I'll come back. You see,
Yeah.
that's what happened when you get old, you forget things.
No, it's absolutely. But I think it's true, and I think, you know, it's obviously it's the, you know, it's a fight we continue to fight. Absolutely.
Justice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Violence.
Yeah.
Was.
And obviously, I heard you talking about your legacy and what you want your legacy to be. You know, as you kind of move on, and you obviously talked about the brand, your family, but also the empowerment of women is also part of that, right?
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, you know, legacy is what you leave behind, you know. So the first thing is the family, you know, the children, the grandchildren, and I'm very proud of that. And then you have what you did, the work, the brand, and hopefully it can continue to stand for what it stands for. And then there is the impact that you can leave behind. And the advantage is that if you have been somewhat successful, you have a voice. And if you have a voice, you should use your voice and your experiences and your knowledge and your connections and your resources in order to help others to be the women they want to be.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful point to leave this, but thank you so much for your time. It's been fascinating talking to you and very, very, you know, really interesting. So thank you so much. And
thank you so much. Enjoy the nice weather.
thank you. Will do.
Bye.
Take care.